There is one trend in the United States economy that I've been growing more and more concerned about. And if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, chances are you know exactly what trend I'm referring to. And that is the trend of the growing US consumer debt problem, and really just the US debt problem in general. Every quarter, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York releases a report breaking down where US consumer debt is trending. And not only does this give us great insight into the US economy as a whole, but this report also dives into things like vehicle loans, repossessions, credit cards, and more, which gives us even more great insight into things like the car market. And let's just say, things don't look good. Household debt has climbed to $17.69 trillion in the first quarter of 2024. Total household debt increased by $184 billion, mortgage balances grew by $190 billion, and auto loan debt climbed by $9 billion. The silver lining here is that credit card balances actually decreased, which is normal for this time of year. You see, with the holiday season, consumers rack up credit card debt in Q4, and then they work in Q1 to pay off that debt, which is exactly what happened this year. You can see the breakdown of US debt here, with mortgages making up 70% of debt, auto loans making up 9%, student loans also making up 9%, and credit cards making up 6%. And while the amount of credit card debt consumers held in Q1 did fall, the amount of accounts consumers held did increase, and this has been increasing in recent years. While car loans and mortgages are both flat, and are actually down from, say, 2021 and 2022 highs. And in general, the amount of money that people are borrowing in order to buy cars, that number is historically climbing. You can see here that the bulk of auto loan borrowers are high credit score borrowers, but there are still subprime and deep subprime borrowers mixed in. But here's wherever we go into the even worse news of this report, which is delinquencies. And the reality is delinquency statuses across loans are climbing. And this is especially true with auto loans and credit cards. Now, as we've spoken about on this channel before, as a result of the pandemic, in recent years, delinquency statuses and the repercussions that come along with delinquencies like repossessions or foreclosures, these types of things have been at record lows. There's a few reasons for this. Number one is that many banks and loan holders had programs in place to give consumers relief from their debts temporarily during the pandemic. Some banks offered loan pauses or just gave you a break of having to pay your loan, while other banks and financial institutions put a hold on any foreclosures or repossessions, some for a very long period of time. And as a result of this, repossessions, foreclosures, and delinquency rates tanked during the pandemic. The second reason why we've seen record low delinquency statuses, foreclosures, and repossessions is because during the pandemic, there were so many government programs to give more Americans more cash into their pockets. And this definitely did help prevent delinquencies from occurring. But you can see here that delinquency statuses hit a high during the recession in 2008. Then it dipped down to where it flatlined for a few years at the 3 to 4% mark. Then it dipped to record lows in the years during and following the pandemic, and it's been climbing ever since. And we are inching closer and closer to pre-pandemic levels when it comes to delinquency rates. And if we look at this data even closer, this is where it gets even worse. 90-day delinquency statuses have been rising in recent quarters, with credit cards seeing the largest increase in delinquency rates. In fact, delinquency rates have surpassed 10% for the first time since about 2012. This means that of all credit card accounts, 10% of these accounts are in delinquencies or are 90 days or more past due. That is significant. So while credit card delinquency rates are at the highest rate that we've seen in over a decade, and while auto loan delinquency rates aren't climbing at the same rate, they are still climbing and currently sit at about 4.5%, the highest rate that we've seen since 2021. Mortgage rates, home equity loans, and student loans remain at record lows. And, well, if you thought that this data couldn't get any worse, it does. 30-day mortgage delinquencies are up to about 3% and are nearing pre-pandemic levels, while credit card and auto loan delinquencies are both over 8% and are at the highest levels we've seen since 2010 and 2011. Now, I do want to emphasize that when it comes to actual foreclosures, repossessions, and bankruptcies, we are still at historical lows. But I'm afraid that this data from the Federal Reserve is simply writing on the wall for what's to come. Because when it comes to disbursement of debt, what types of debts people have and how much, the data really doesn't look good. You can see here that while third-party collections have gone down in the most recent quarter, they are still at record high high levels from a dollar amount perspective, which is really interesting. The amount of people in third-party collections is the smallest that we've ever seen, but of the people who have third-party collections, the amount that they have is near the highest we've ever seen. Additionally is the ages of the people who have this debt, with ages 30 to 59 all seeing about the same level of debt, and ages 18 to 29 and 70 plus seeing less debt compared to other age groups. But the debt distribution is where it does get a bit concerning, because while ages 18 to 29 hold a lesser amount of debt compared to other age groups, they do hold more bad debt. Their student loan debt is significantly higher than other age groups, as is car debt. And let me again remind you that right now student loan delinquencies are at record lows, and this is the same age group that's transitioning into serious delinquency at a faster rate than other age groups. You can see here the segment of borrower has a much higher delinquency rate for car loans, slightly higher credit card delinquency rate, though ages 30 to 39 also are seeing delinquency rates on credit cards at a climbing and concerning rate as well. And again, this is all with the backdrop of record low student loan delinquency rates. And not only are student loan delinquency rates at a record low, they are insanely low. Student loan delinquencies have historically hovered around 9 to 12%, but for the last couple of years, they've been sitting at between 1 and 2%. And keep in mind that unlike most debts out there, with student loan debt, you can't get rid of it. Once you have it, you pretty much have to pay it. You can't get rid of it whenever you file for bankruptcy. So people who have this debt are truly stuck. And so my concern is a concern that I've had quite a while, and I feel as though I make a video like this about once or twice per year whenever this Federal Reserve report is released. What happens whenever this rising credit card debt, rising car debt, and these delinquencies begin to catch up with consumers? Or when student loan delinquency rates inevitably increase? I've been saying this for a long time now, but our debt situation is simply unsustainable. Between inflation and consumers spending more post-pandemic than pre-pandemic, debt is climbing to an alarming rate. And the result of this could lead to more delinquencies and more repossessions. I mean, as we sit here today, 8% of all auto loans are 30 days or more delinquent. 8%. That is a huge number. And it's concerning. And given as though the largest segment of borrowers for car debt is also the people who have the largest amount of student loan debt, and thus we can assume that they are the biggest beneficiaries of low student loan delinquency rate, and these are the same borrowers who have the smallest amount of good debt, it's not ideal. So truthfully, I don't really have a conclusion to this video other than the fact that I am genuinely concerned about what's going to happen to the US economy in the future. We've been in a weird state of limbo for a number of years now due to the fact that we had the pandemic and now it's an election year. We really haven't had a normal year for a very long time. And I guess if there was one thing to take away from this video, it would be two things. Number one, if you are someone who is looking to buy a car, please make sure that it's a car that you can actually afford, because I do not want anyone who watches this video to fall in that 8th percentile for 30-day plus delinquency. And point number two is that I would keep an eye on the economy and the current debt situation, because I do expect that it will get worse before it gets better. Because the amount of debt that consumers are taking out versus how much these same consumers are making, yeah, these two numbers just don't add up. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.